That's the gold star. That's what you really want to work on with a lot of your patients. A lot of times, I might work on anterior elevation, not because I'm trying to train their reaching and their ability to elevate, but because ultimately I want to get these muscles to engage so that I can get them to relax so I can actually get them down into posterior depression. If I have someone coming in and they're real tight and holding their shoulder up, I might work those anterior elevators first to get them so that I can get them to relax, to get them down into posterior depression, because a lot of times that's my goal. We talked about that this morning, about my goal for postural stability, for scapular stabilization on the thoracic spine, for gait, posterior depression just being such a big component to that. Okay? Now, because I'm in the same diagonal pattern when I do posterior depression, I don't need to change anything about his position, so it's easy. I've done anterior elevation, now posterior depression is coming right back down. Okay? So the problem is, if I just come here, and I came down here before at his end range and said pull up, he was able to go into anterior elevation. He got what I wanted him to do. If I do the opposite and set him, bring him up into anterior elevation, and say push down, most people are going to have absolutely no idea what you're talking about, because they haven't been in posterior depression in years. Okay? All your computer workers, all your people that drive all day, that sit all day, don't really know what posterior depression is of the scapula. Okay? So if I'm trying to train posterior depression, the best way that I do this is with an end range hold. Okay? So that means I'm going to put him there. All right? If he doesn't know where I want him to go, this is a big concept in PNF, put them where you want them and start making them work there. Okay? So I'm going to set him the same way. I'm going to bring him down. I'm going to downwardly rotate him. And here's his end range of posterior depression. Okay? I've got that scapula rotated down, so his inferior angle is moving towards his spine. Here's my posterior depression. Okay? So if I want him to be able to start working in this position, I'm going to tell him to hold here, and I'm going to start resisting out of this position. Okay? Because there's that same over the bowl type of movement, I need to change my body to do this. Because if he's all the way down here and I want him to stay here, I've got to get my arm way down here. Okay? Because remember, the direction of my forearm is going to dictate the direction that he's moving. So I'm going to bring him down into posterior depression, and I'm going to lock in right here. So his scapula is sitting right in my hand. So I've got my hand kind of in this position, and it's sitting right in there. And what I'm trying to do with my hand is rotate him up. All right, but I'm not going to let him move, so relax it. I'm going to set him, bring you down here. Okay, now feel how I've got you all the way down here? I want you to just hold it here. Don't let me move you up. And I'll show you just with this hand first. Hold it. And I'm trying to rotate him up. I can put this hand on the posterior aspect of his deltoid also and say hold it and try to push him up this way. But I don't want to use this hand for a lot of my resistance. Most of it comes from the scapular hand, because the key is that scapular rotation. Okay? So I get him here. It's an end range hold. Hold it here. Don't let me move you. And I'm trying to rotate him up. Keep holding. Now if I want to work eccentrically, I want you to just slowly let it come up a little bit. Good. And now push back down towards me. And I'm getting that rotation, and I've got to drop my forearm down to get that. Let it slowly come up. And push it back down. Good. Okay? So that's posterior depression. All right? Before we practice, I want you guys to feel something about posterior depression, so you can come on up. Thank you. All right, so to feel what posterior depression actually feels like on your scapula and where they sit in end range posterior depression, this is just a little quick check that you can do for yourself. So slightly, just with your arms down to your sides, just slightly elevate your shoulders. Okay, not up towards your ears, just slightly. Okay. Now, externally rotate your arms without going into thoracic extension. Just externally rotate your arms until you feel that you get some adduction of your scapula. Okay, without thoracic extension. So that's that full adduction. Okay. Now, keeping that adduction, just think about dropping your shoulder blades straight down. Drop down there. Now, if you get neural tension in your arms, just let your elbows bend. That is end range of posterior depression. Okay? Now, we don't want people walking around in end range posterior depression all the time, but that's the position that we want to train them in to get those stabilizers to kick in. So it's a good cue that you can give someone. It's just slightly elevating, externally rotating, and dropping straight down. That's your posterior depression of your scapula. So when we're training them in side lying, that's the position that we're training. Okay?